All right, we're back. Who the fuck is sitting next to you now, man?
I don't know. He just showed up.
I know this is weird, dude.
Just showed up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I am so sorry I'm late. You have no idea. I've had an electric car for a long time, and this is the first day I regretted it.
So, I'm going to have him introduce himself, but this is Mike Downey. He's a tech entrepreneur. He's also Don's cousin. So just tell everybody a little bit about your background, Mike, and then we're going to get back to the cool shit.
Yeah, can we have a cheers too?
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
Oh, glad you made it here.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this. Yeah, so my name is Mike Downey. I'm a tech entrepreneur. I've worked with some of the very early stage technology companies have been kind of my pattern. I was very early at America Online when we were carpet bombing the United States with CD-ROMs, and that was the first.
Brian Usman, our AV guy, Brian.
Probably doesn't even know what a CD-ROM is.
I mean, he kind of does, but he's like, he had to go to the fucking the digital marketing archives to find a CD-ROM and shit.
That was the beginning of the internet, son.
Exactly. You know what a floppy disk is?
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So in any event, I had very good timing at AOL, and that was, it just really set me on my path. I'm a history major, but I've been really into emerging technology and media, forever. Because I got that job after applying to an ad in the LA Times newspaper.
Yeah, that's how you used to get a job. There was it was called the classifieds.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered
Damn.
some old shit. Mail.
I know we did U.S. Mail.
Yeah. But it ended up changing my life, that, just making that call and, and getting fortunate that they saw something in me and brought me in as a young man. And it really kind of shaped the trajectory of my career. And then I left AOL after the Time Warner acquisition and was in a position to figure out what I wanted to do. And I ended up at this company called, it was called GoTo, but it became Overture. And it was we're the creators of the paid search model, which is what the entire internet is built on. Yeah. Google basically copied the model and did it better. And kicked our asses, essentially. The company ended up getting acquired by Yahoo for a lot of money, and still, forms the backbone of, many different search sites. But it was a great ride. And then I ended up getting interested in blockchain and Web3 applications about 3 years ago, when I was working for a video game company. I had an agency. We did predictive analytics models for companies like the NBA to help them figure out which countries in the world they want to grow in, and using data to figure out how to prioritize.
Could you help them to figure out what's going to come out of Kyrie's mouth next? If you could figure out like some type of algorithm for that. I think they'd be very grateful.
I think NBA would be a lot of money for that algorithm.
About Elon's mouth?
Exactly.
It's like, that'd be an interesting. Yeah, no way.
Well, right on, man. Thanks. So glad you're here. We're gonna we talked about earlier. We're gonna talk about how why you're here specifically, besides being Don's cousin.
Yeah.
It's not the. I'm always missing the wrong word, but it's kind of that convergence. Yeah, the convergence of this blockchain technology and wine. We'll get into. Just want to get into a little bit more about Don's story, and then feel free to chime in with any embarrassing anecdotes you know about Don.
Oh shit!
Let's do it.
All right,
let's do it.
So,
that sounds great.
So when we before the break we were talking about Mataro, Movedro, Graciano, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We had talked about the Willow Creek district. You had said, that's where that's kind of like your home. So working at Saxum, you said you came back to know winemaking. So when did you decide to make the leap and start the Turtle Rock label?
It was about a year after I got here. I quickly realized that, I was originally, Westberg was the original label. That was my uncle's label. And I pretty quickly figured out that we had two different visions, and that maybe I would help him rebuild Westberg and I would start my own brand because we wanted to just had different ideas, different things. So
Did
yeah,
you tell them about Grandma and Grandpa?
Oh, tell me about Grandma and Grampy.
I didn't tell him
He
about
did
Grandma
not.
and Grandpa.
Mike, tell him.
In that little tasting room.
Oh,
Yeah, that was like
Yeah,
one of
we
my
had
first experiences. To
little
Paso.
barn.
So who this was? Your grandparents used to work the tasting room.
Well, they came down and visited and hung out when we would do like little, our version of a pickup party, not like the one we're having tomorrow.
Okay.
But we would probably have like 15 or 20 people come by, and we were trying to figure out how to sell wine. And my uncle was telling me, I think the first thing that really made me realize that we were just gonna be a separation is he thought that anybody should be able to get a great bottle of wine for under $14.
That's a philosophy.
Yeah, if you want to go broke.
Yeah.
I can't even make my wine for $14.
Well, I mean, but see, he came out of the industrial wine complex.
He
So,
did.
So that philosophy makes sense, right?
Yeah, I made a bottle of Zin under his label the first year and put a price tag of $30 on it because it's what I felt like I needed to charge to make a living. And he told me I was crazy.
He's like, sacre bleu.
Nobody's going to pay $30 for a Zinfandel, and we sold out.
You
in
never
6
heard of
months.
Turley?
I know, right?
I mean, come on. That's not even like a reach at that point.
Totally.
But anyway, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So when was your first vintage?
So 2008 was our first vintage
For Turtle Rock?
for Turtle Rock. Yeah.
Shit.
So I kind of jumped right in.
What'd you make?
The caveat of that is that the 2008 vintage was I had a really good opportunity to source some really good bulk wine, blend it myself. So I came out with just like one wine that was a blend of something I liked. So I don't really, yes, it was my first vintage is Turtle Rock, but I like to say 2010 was our first vintage where I was doing everything from the picking decisions to the barreling to the fermenting. But yeah, it was like 2 barrels, and then 11 was like 4 barrels, and then 12 was maybe 6 barrels. We grew very slow. I'd say 14 was the first year we made probably made 850, 900 cases, something like that.
Right.
Because it was I definitely underestimated the capital needs of the wine business.
Right.
And so we grew a lot slower than I thought.
Right. And so when did you kind of come on, like, because we're in Paso Robles, shout out to Vicky Carroll, Hospice de Rhone. It is known.
Absolutely.
You mentioned John Albin earlier.
Sure.
There was this guy, his name is Jeb Dunnick, and he used to write a thing called the Rhone Report.
Yeah.
Then he went to work for Robert Parker.
Yep.
So when did you sack up and put a wine in front of Jeb?
I think I jumped right in with like 2012.
Okay.
It was pretty nerve wracking, but I think 2012 I did have some James Berry Vineyard fruit.
Okay.
So I felt pretty confident that it would be, and I think my first submissions were Spectator and Advocate.
Okay.
And I think we scored low mid 90s.
Okay.
So we did pretty well.
Not bad. I'm not mad at you.
Not bad at all.
Yeah.
And then 14 was the first year, and that was when we first started sourcing G2 Vineyard.
Okay.
Got the G2 Syrah, and we scored a 98 on that wine in 2014.
Shit, how much were we selling that for in 2014?
I think it was like $45.
I was like fucking ludicrously cheap, right? I mean, because your wines are still kind of undervalued. I mean, you raised, but like,
yeah.
But like, I mean, what did I pay for this first time? Maybe 65.
Probably 65.
60,
yeah,
65?
I think it's 75 now, so it's not much.
But 40 fucking bucks.
Yeah.
98 point wine.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And a small production
Yeah.
too. I think
Exactly.
like 100 cases.
No,
or
exactly.
something,
I mean, it's not like, because, every now and then someone will, like, Spanish people are good for this. They'll make like a 95 point wine. They'll make 200,000 cases.
Yeah.
It's
a little bit different.
MJ, how do you look at scores? Like, what's your score
they're
philosophy?
like guideposts, man. And the most important, that's a great question, Mike. I've said this often. Let's not discount the wine critic, the role of the wine critic in the world, because most people aren't going to taste 10 to 30,000 wines in a year. And it's nice to have someone who can guide you along your journey. And the most important thing is you have to understand where your palate aligns or is disproportionate.
Do all of
with
the critics have very different palates?
Absolutely, yeah.
And listen, and I mean, it only logically makes sense. I had a MW on my show, and she's like, literally, and MWs are interesting, but her point about critics is like, I have different DNA, I have different saliva, I have different amounts of, for like decay and leftover food in my mouth. All this stuff affects your palate, right?
Absolutely.
So it becomes with like knowing what you like. So for me, I like when we talk about this, I like big, plush, but balanced acid wines. And Jeb tends to like the same wines. Same token, I can take a wine from a different critic. Like if James Molesworth, who was on the podcast, if he gives something like a 93, I'm like, okay, I might like that because that's a high score for him.
Right.
It's knowing how, and also knowing how the critic scores and where your palate aligns with that, right? So
Yeah, I think that's the key.
that's the key.
How do you think about him as an artisan, Don?
I kind of agree with him. Well, I totally agree with him, and I think kind of what's morphed over time is that it used to be like, Robert Parker's a perfect example. When he started The Advocate, he was a singular palate. So you knew whether you agreed with his palate or disagreed with his palate. He gave you a metric that you could either say, I might like that wine or I might not like that wine. Yeah. But now it's kind of gone to these multiple tasters. A lot of the platforms are, might have 12, 13 people tasting wines from different regions. And it gets a little bit more difficult to get to know each one and how your palate aligns with them.
Do any of them have multiple people tasting your wine, and that's how they derive their score?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
so it's not just a single.
No, and
ever.
And what's happened because of technology, there's always pluses and minuses. Like with the advent of bloggers and so on, so a lot of publications are hiring writers, not necessarily wine people.
I agree. Yeah.
So like in Jeb Dunnick's case, like are Jeb Dunnick's scores based on his palate alone?
They were. Now, see, so that's the interesting thing. I mean, it's a great question, right? Like, so Jeb had his own report called the Rome Report. We mentioned briefly, which was modeled after Robert Parker.
I love his website, by the way, Jeb Dunnick. Like the way the data, it's really
nice. Well, he's a rocket
really
science. He was an engineer, so it's very meticulously laid out. It's no nonsense. So you're right. But so the problem is scale, right? So he can only taste so many wines. So he just recently brought in, shout out to my girl Audrey Frick.
Yes, she's awesome.
She's an awesome person. But her palate's different from Jeb's, and like he's thrown her some regions, and like I remember like when the scores came out from some other, I was like, you guys got to understand, Audrey's not Jeb,
Right.
So it'll take the readers some time to calibrate their palate to hers.
But at least it's still like just a duality, right? There's two and they're doing the same region. So it's it'll take a little bit of time, but there's still that direct connection with a person and being able to understand.
And that's what's important is like that, because like when you see a score in the Wine Spectator, that was a blind tasting with 30 people in the room, and it's a composite, which some people might think is more democratic, but it also it can be confusing. You don't know who actually where unless it says the JM or the J, like you don't know the genesis of that.
What would you guys say to people that are just getting into wine or that are like really starting to kind of dig in and how they should relate to scores?
I mean, like I'm from New York, so like there's a particular Somm culture which can be anti-score. I had a guest on, Alice Firing. She wrote a book, literally, How I Saved the World from the Parkerization of Wine. But I will flip. I will flip that and say, we wouldn't be like the growth of the wine industry, particularly in California, is due to Robert Parker,
100%,
and around the world. Because so there were people who as they come up, most people don't drink wine growing up in this country. You didn't drink wine growing up. It wasn't on the table in your house, right? So you're, wine, you go work at, say, New York, you go to work at Goldman, you have an expense fucking account. You got to take people out to dinner, right? And, you start the Ruth Chris and you just start with the most expensive wine. But what Parker did was he allowed people who had the disposable income, he opened up a whole new world of wine to them. And also by doing that, it made inroads for the wine industry, particularly in America. I don't think we wouldn't be where we are today without his scores and his system. He could be polarizing, but that's because he made a difference,
I agree.
But like for new people getting into it, do you think it's like figuring out what you like?
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. So like, listen, there's nothing wrong with going and buying a bottle of wine that's $12 that has a 93 from James Suckling because that's how it's marketed. They put the stickers on it.
Yeah.
But the number one thing you can do is taste wine and try wine. So I tell people all the time, most people don't have a good wine merchant in their town, to be honest. But if you can find a good wine merchant, you go in there, you talk to them, you give them a price range. They're gonna ask you questions and they're gonna direct you. So that's the most important thing, is to taste as many wines as possible.
Yeah.
And be open and use the scores as a guidepost.
And I think I see too more influence from peers now. Like
100%.
more people I know that find my wine or end up contacting me to purchase our wine.
Shout out
they
to
had
Smoke.
a bottle with a friend. Yeah, exactly.
Just write a review on Instagram and people sign up on the list. And it's exciting when they sent me, I was like, I just got my first allocation to Turtle Rock. And I'm like, Don. He's like, oh yeah, he's so great. Like that's, but again, that's someone trusting my palate. They don't know me from a fucking can of paint.
One of the things I learned from Donnie that I thought was...
You actually learned something from me? That's interesting.
Not one. It's only one thing. But
he's like, don't get it twisted.
Yeah. This guy's a great entrepreneur. I don't know if you know that. I love working with Donnie. Yeah. He's like, he's a creative. I call him the Willy Wonka of adult beverages. Okay. But what I learned...
Come with me and you'll be in a world of wine imagination.
Are you my Oompa Loompa?
I'm Mike TV. You can...
Veruca Salt.
Good band, good indie band named Veruca Salt.
I know. I used to see him at the wetlands in New York City.
So what I learned from Donnie, because like most of my honestly, like my love of wine has been largely through my family that moved to Paso Robles. And so I came up visiting, and through Donnie becoming, a winemaker, that's been, and one of the things that I thought was so interesting, like with the mass market wines, the really high production wines, the consistency from year to year, which is what a mass market wants. But what makes it so interesting is the variation from year to year.
Well, that's for the true wine. That's true winemaking. It can't taste the same every year.
You don't want it to.
It can't. But to your point, like those wines are like Coca-Cola. It's a formula. Remember what happened when Coke changed the formula? People didn't like it. People flipped.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think it's true? I don't know if you told me this, but like the mass-produced wines, there's a lot more chemistry.
There's
involved.
a lot more chemistry. Yeah, a lot.
And do you guys believe that impacts hangover?
I mean, depending on the
amount. I'm going to say yes for sure. But
I don't have any proof of that. I'm not a scientist.
If anybody out there has any data on that, send it to MJ. Listen, I'm curious.
Let's put it this way.
It seems to be the case.
Let's put it this way. You can't put chemicals and stuff and not have effects, right?
Right.
Just okay. We know. I would say it to be true, but wine doesn't have to list the side effects like fucking a medicine does.
Right.
Right. So everything they
or
put
even
in
the ingredients.
The ingredients, right?
Yeah.
Right. Which then goes to the whole fucking natural wine fucking shit where they're trying to act like. But most really well made wines just pretty much have grapes in them and a little bit of sulfur.
Yeah, that's it.
People don't get caught up in the marketing hype of that. But these are all great questions. And what I wanted to get back to, first of all, what should we have next? Although,
what are we drinking now? By the way, the Willow's.
Oh, that's the Willow's Cuvée.
Is that the 20 Willows?
Yeah.
I wanted to bring out the 20s to show that we don't have smoke taint.
I don't even I can't even begin to tell you guys, if you follow me on Instagram, how much I love this wine.
You can dump that out.
Yeah, this particular wine is.
I think it was berry motherfucking cobbler.
Yeah, it was.
It's a
blackberry cobbler a la mode, motherfucker.
That's what it was. Sorry,
and then
I put my motherfucker in the wrong spot.
No, you can never put a motherfucker in the wrong spot. Just ask Samuel L. Jackson.
Right.
But to talk about, like, when I did that review, I hadn't really known Don yet. And this was when I was like even for me, who had been in the business, and at the end of the day, everyone's palate is different, but like when you say something about a wine and the fucking winemaker's like, you nailed it, that's when I was like, and it was the fucking cardamom that was in that particular vintage.
Yeah, without a doubt.
It had cardamom in it like a motherfucker.
We were watching when you were releasing that list, like we were watching it, and we're like, and then we're like, oh, You didn't get, but then when you got the
Yeah, we
number
talked
one,
about that.
We
Yeah.
talked about
I didn't know.
that.
I didn't know you were watching that with him because
Uh,
he told me that story when I actually the whole crew, the band's all back at Brian as I recorded that conversation, and he's like, I was watching that list and it got to number 3. I was like, damn it.
I didn't make it.
What
I didn't
happened?
make
That's
it.
so cool. Wait, and I think you referenced Sade. Like
That might have been. I don't know
Was
if
that
that
a
was
different-
That might have been another review of the wine. It was so
Maybe a
good.
different
I
one,
might,
yeah.
but yeah, I said it. I was going to try and pull it up, but I go through 3,000 posts. But it's like
Yeah.
smoother than that operator MJ. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a really cool thing we could talk about, and how you guys are cousins, and you did all this. You're a tech entrepreneur. You had you worked with some big names early on, and now you're doing your own thing, and very timely. I subscribe to the newsletters, these quick bites, and it's called Morning Brew. It's out of New York, and one of their headlines was like "Panic at the Crypto." Yesterday.
That's a great.
Yeah, I thought it was
headline.
great. Yeah. So let's talk about. We're gonna get to that. But let's talk about the Westberg Red. We know it's an homage to your uncle.
Yeah.
What's the blend on? Give me a bottle.
Yeah,
So
you
the
know, I
blend on
can't read it.
this year. So the one I really liked was, that first one that really blew me away was the 76. It was just 76 Zen, 24 Tempranillo.
Yeah.
So now you've in true Paso Robles fashion, mad scientist fashion. So it's 42 Zen, 32% Tempranillo. So it's still heavy there, but then 26 Petite Syrah.
Correct.
And it always comes from the Four Hearts Vineyard, though, correct?
It does. Yeah. It's
Okay.
always all 4
So
hearts.
talk about Four Hearts, and then why you threw Petite Syrah into the vintage in 2020.
So Four Hearts is also Willow Creek District, just down the road from James Berry Vineyard. It is, I think it's got about 20 years of age on it now, so it's been around. It's dry farmed and head trained, so big wide spacing. Kind of the opposite of what all the new plantings look like. Just these big, massive head trained vines. And does surprisingly well in the drought. Just those old roots going down deep and getting that water. But an interesting thing about this wine is it's a really good example of the way I think of co-fermentation, or think of the way I treat wine. We don't do any manipulation in the winery, no acidification, no deacidification. And to me, pH is a very important part of a wine. I think the proper pH really helps show the characteristics. So Zinfandel, for me, I like to pick it a little bit early. I like the bright red fruit. I don't like it when it gets jammy or over the top.
I like the high toned aspects of
bright,
it.
It's bright and lifted.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is Zinfandel tends to have a lot of acid early on. So you might have a 3.1, 3.2 pH, which is not making a great wine.
Right.
Well, Tempranillo is the other side of that. I like Tempranillo when it gets really ripe. It takes a while for the tannins to resolve, but then the acid follows that. So you might have a 4.1 pH. Well, I put them together. I get my 3.75, which is about where I like my wines.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to add anything. I didn't have to chemically change anything. I just put the two grapes together. So we use them kind of like a spice rack.
What's the percentage blend on this?
Oh, it's
40,
it's 42 Zen, 32 Tempranillo, and 26 Petite Syrah.
And I kind of always had this in mind when I started. But when I first started sourcing from this, when I started sourcing from this vineyard, I didn't have access to the Petite Syrah. I had to, bang a couple scores and have a little bit of a relationship with them before they started selling me Petite. So,
And Petite and Zen go well together. We know that from Ridge.
I've always liked that.
Yep.
Yeah.
How does this compare to the 19 Westberg, do you think?
Still pretty early, but I would say that the 19 is maybe a little more structured, and has a little more acid. But I think it's pretty close.
I love that wine. I love both of these
Yeah.
wines.
And like another thing I said in that review, it's like I think I might have said it was a frosted blueberry Pop Tart with flecks of tar under it, right?
Right.
So with this one, right, I stuck my nose in there, and I was like, oh my god, it reminds me of grape bubble yum.
Right? Great, but with underlyings of tar again.
Yeah,
though.
exactly. Yeah, exactly,
It's
right?
still there.
MJ, we have 150 magnums of the 2019 Westberg just for Rare Liquid members. And
Yeah,
those are the only magnums that you made.
Yeah, all of the magnums that I produced in 19 went directly to Rare Liquid.
It's so exciting.
And so this is so lifted and refined, high tone, but then the darkness starts to settle in. Incredible. I need a big fat cheeseburger. Somebody go get me an In-N-Out burger.
Yeah, you got to have In-N-Out while you're here.
I do have to have In-N-Out while I'm here. So and I remember particularly with the Westberg Red, like the first vintage I got, like I think it was 2018. Remember 2018? What did you release in 2019? 2017?
Yes.
Okay, so it was 2017. I remember it only got like 96 points from Jeb, and like a bunch of people I was drinking with, Adam Egan, and then Dave Eubank. Dave Eubank, he's like, I don't see what the flaw in this wine. I don't see why it's 100-point wine.
That's awesome.
Tell me about the label on this. I love.
Yeah, and then we're gonna get into and all the labels first of all, before we get to labels, why Turtle Rock?
So the big white calcareous rocks that are super prominent on the west side of Paso that make up our soil type, it's a fractured shale. When they wear down over time and get uncovered in vineyards, they look like turtle shells kind of crawling out of all the farmers, old time farmers, used to call them turtle rocks.
Nice.
Usually followed with an expletive because they were that fucking turtle rock that broke the shank on my tractor or something like that, But yeah, and we had quite a few of those on the property I grew up on. One in particular that looked a lot like a turtle, so just thought it was appropriate.
And then your label art, I mean, shit, I got to get this kind of podcast. Let's talk about why Dane Curley does all your labels.
He does.
How'd you come to meet Dane, and why did he become your guy, man?
I got hammered with him at a Herman Story pickup party.
Oh yeah, you talk about Herman Story, like they don't make anything under 15.5.
Yeah, and it's
on the label.
Yeah.
I love that guy. Do you reverence
Russell,
that brand? Russell, I freaking love it.
One of my favorite people in the world.
Yeah, Russell's awesome.
But yeah, I met him there, and I was at the time looking to make a label change. I felt like the quality of the wines had gotten to a point where my kind of homemade label was just not doing it anymore.
The stick figure?
The stick figure, yeah, the hand-drawn.
Yeah.
And he was working at a label production facility and wanted to get in. He was a graphic designer in college and wanted to take a shot. I said, hey, would you let me take a shot? And I think the first one he did was the G2.
Okay.
And I loved it. So I said, let's do them all.
Yeah,
and
the tickle pink is
it's beautiful, and they're all
Claude's Cuvée with the fucking swordfish.
Yeah, they're all my ideas, or my wife's ideas.
The plum
and
orchard.
Then he implements
I love
them.
the plum orchard with the hourglass. That's one of my favorites.
And since while it's present, because we're gonna go and I'm drinking, and by go I mean we're gonna keep going, drinking and talking.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lose this point. Yeah. You told me a story about the Claude's Cuvée and Philippe Combi. Tell that story. You told that to me privately, but please tell it to everyone who's listening.
I got to make sure I'm about the fish and the
no, I think it was about, because that's like your 95% Grenache. Like that's their most.
No, that's the plum orchard.
That's okay. See,
yeah,
I told you we're gonna go. I'm drinking.
Sure,
I don't want to get too far down the road.
So the plum orchard, and we mentioned before, that wine for me was Reyes.
Yes.
So we found a site on the west side of Paso that is on decomposed sandstone, which is similar to what Reyes is planted on, or at least portions of it. And I had the incredible opportunity to taste with Philippe Combi because of the downstream project he did with Saxum.
Yeah.
An amazing man, an amazing palate. We miss him dearly, for sure.
Rest in peace. Yeah. Thank you.
But I was invited to a Grenache dinner by him, and it was like John Albin, Nick Krankel, Stefan Assail, Justin
he the one
Smith.
that Justin made downstream with?
Yeah, he was the enologist, yeah. So it was basically all the who's who of Grenache producers in California and
Philippe.
And Justin told me to bring my plum orchard. And it was the first year I'd made it. Pretty unsure of myself at the time, especially with a new varietal. Got there, and boy, was there a crazy amount of Grenache out on that table, from Reyes to everything you can imagine. Single vineyards. It was very intimidating. So I pulled out I think I had a CDP. I don't even remember, a Clota Pop or something, and put that on the table. And I left mine underneath the table. I didn't want to pull it out. And about halfway through the night, Justice Smith said, "Where's your wine?" I said, "I left it on the table. I'm not pulling that out here." And he goes, "Hey, everybody. Don's too much of a fucking pussy to pull out his wine.
Yeah, he's like the guy like in high school is like in the locker room. I'm not showering. I'm gonna go home. He's like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll go home and shower. But
I'm not pulling it out.
I'm not pulling it out in here.
Yeah,
you
no.
know?
And
he called you out. He called you a pussy.
Oh,
That's
he
awesome.
did. Fucking pussy. Oh, and Jensen was there, of course. And it's like,
yeah, Jensen
give
like,
me that wine.
they're just like, you know.
And so we opened the wine, and it showed extremely well. And Philippe told me later that he put it in the top 5 of those Grenaches.
So that's
that
high
night,
praise.
so
Yeah,
cool.
that's so cool.
I
So-
love that wine.
Yeah.
That might be my favorite because it's so light, you know, compared to some of the other.
Well, I mean, see, this is where we help a guy like you out who's just loves wine, but like that's like Reyes is it's a lighter expression. It's the more finesse, the more elegant, but still packed with flavor. So
Yeah.
that I get it.
And it defied that color stigma too. You know, like everybody thinks that
And the-
wine's quality is determined by its color, and that's just not true.
Well, our buddy Christophe also believes that too. He's like the color doesn't, you know.
Yeah, it's not.
And
But
the
I will
label.
say, go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say I love the label on the Plum Orchard and the story behind the label.
Okay,
in
so
terms
yeah,
of the
hourglass.
Yeah.
Talk about that because,
Yeah.
like I said, it's a Dane Curley label, but like there's meaning behind it, and and trust me, we're gonna come back to the Westberg Red.
Yeah, I just I thought that the important part of that wine was making people realize that the difference in the soil, that sandy soil, is what creates that
so the
expression
sand-
of. So we actually have the hourglass breaking, the sand falling out, and then the vine growing out of the sand.
See, I'm thinking it had to do with like that soap opera, Through the Sands of Time. I thought you were
So are the days of our lives.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was almost the Days of Our Lives.
Yeah, no, I was just more referring to the sandy soils.
He's like,
and,
nah, man, it was wine related.
Yeah,
Yeah. You should see the animation we created of that label because that's one of the things about the NFT space it's really a new creative canvas for artists and producers to bring their ideas to life. And what we should post it somewhere for your listeners to see. But that animation where we took Dane Curley's core art and worked with him and Don to bring the hourglass to life, and it's one of my favorites of them. It's really
it's
rich.
pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'll definitely in the show notes for this, I'll post cool links to a lot of stuff we discussed. So you give me a link, we'll make sure we post that for people.
Yeah.
And then on the Westberg Red, what is the significance? The leaf.
So that is the gentleman who's been farming that vineyard for most of its existence by the name of Steve Crouch, and he is big into Native American culture.
Okay.
He used to make headdresses. Does sweat lodges, all that kind of stuff. So originally I wanted to put a headdress on there. I thought that would be a nice homage to him. And I said, let's do it with red-tail hawk feathers because they're very prominent on that vineyard. And so Dane started by drawing the feathers to figure out how to draw the headdress. And when he showed me the feather, I was like, just stop right there.
Done.
Like, you're done. Like, that's so beautiful. There's no reason we need to do a headdress. So yeah, like most of them are just for fun, either relating to the vineyard, the site, our family. Just tell a story. I want it to be, again, fun, pleasurable wine. So pretty to look at, artistic, but not too serious.
Yeah. The other thing about that label and
First time podcast.
I thought we were the ones that been drinking.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I just came through.
I know
a battle.
the hell it took Mike to get here.
Yeah.
The electric car woes.
Yeah. But I was gonna say, like with the Westberg Red label and all of his labels, the audio soundtrack, like that's what's so interesting is that you can bring in music. And so with the Westberg, we had an EDM producer named Morgan Page, who's an awesome guy and a huge wine enthusiast, and what he did, and he loves Turtle Rock. He was listening. We sent him the bottles, and he created these soundtracks, these small scores that are actually inspired by the wine. Mm-hmm. And so it's another point that there's multiple dimensions that open up, with this as a new medium. And we'll post that as well, just thinking creatively. People thinking about the intersection of music and wine. That's a
Should
really
read the
exciting
article
category.
about me and jebdunnick.com.
Yeah, right? yeah.
But so yeah, Mike. So let's talk about let's talk about
Well, let's keep the story on Donnie. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to, but
Yeah, but I
you
mean,
know,
but-
at
but
No,
some
I
point,
mean we
yeah.
can move over
but,
too.
but,
I mean,
but I want to get to, because I'm looking at the 2020, and when I got I guess I got my 2019 allocation, and there's a QR code on there.
Yeah.
All right. So Mike and Don, they're both addition to what they do. Like Don's an entrepreneur. He's a winemaker, and he's a vigneron, if you will, or a vintner. Mike is a tech entrepreneur. They're cousins. They both like wine, and they got the crazy idea because Mike knows this Web3, this technology called blockchain.
To be clear, I don't know anything.
Okay,
Let's start there.
All right. I mean, that's what I always say. I mean, like, I'm gonna put it this way. Mike knows more than me and Don about this fucking shit. Let's put it that way.
that is true.
All right. So that's
a
fact.
pretty low bar to start with.
Yeah.
Though.
I mean, which is like I said, it's a very low bar. But talk about, because like I said, people are don't understand. They think NFTs are crypto. Talk about the underlying technology that you guys are bringing together with the Rare Liquid Society. Talk about that, and then we'll get into how what you see the future is.
Yeah, and maybe we talk about kind of the story of origin, like how.
Yeah, like who went to who? Like, I mean, like
it kind of happened organically. Like Donnie and I are good friends. We battle in cornhole and ping pong, and
you got to have that. Everybody has that one cousin who's like your favorite cousin. I see you guys are like favorite.
I'm his second.
It's not Mike, but
I'm second though, right?
Yeah,
we got a lot of freaking
moved into
cousins.
first. Yeah.
I listen. I had at one point, like, I had 54 first cousins, man. That's a lot.
I'm probably right there with you.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Were we on?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
You can go
whatever.
to that, because I mean, if you want more Westberg, but I'm probably going to hit some.
I think our initial business startings came around the fact that I was looking to upgrade my web presence and my website. And I knew that he had a great creative mind, and I liked the way that he looked at things visually. And so I approached him about helping me with my site and maybe doing some content for me. And just trying to figure out how to get the name out. This was before we had a waiting list, so this was kind of a little early. And after that relationship, after doing the content and things, he just kind of approached me with this idea.
Yeah, and I think like initially it was about creative, but then I had been bitten by the blockchain bug.
Okay.
I am really convinced that this is the future. Like, this is a general purpose technology. It's like electricity.
Wow.
It's like the internet. People just don't realize it yet
Sure.
because it's scary right now.
It's scary,
Right?
And
But-
it's had some bad press and some bad.
I mean, listen, I remember when I went to law school in '92, they gave us an email address. I'm like, I'll just call somebody. What the fuck is email?
Yeah.
Right. So it's just
Right.
people don't understand where they're
for
at.
sure.
That's right. And, with all of the kind of hype and hysteria and chaos in the market, consumers, the mass market consumers, like, I'm not touching that. And I don't blame them, but it doesn't change the underlying purpose and the utility. Like, this is where it's going. People can't see that yet.
Right.
And it's up to projects like us and entrepreneurs to explain to people why this exists. So when we started talking and I got more interested in wine, I realized there's a very singular problem that needs to be solved for this industry. It's called provenance.
Yeah.
Right? That is a foundational issue, while counterfeiting and fraud is kind of the tip of the iceberg, right?
Sure.
That doesn't impact a lot, but it's a massive problem. I mean, I think it's estimated that 20% of all collectible bottles, I don't know what the definition of collectible, but I think it's with suggested retail above
over 100.
Yeah.
I believe.
Or something like that. But 20%, anybody that's seen sour grapes, you're like, okay, that's a massive industry problem. But what's really interesting about it is if you can solve for that, which wasn't possible before the advent of blockchain. Like, you need industry alignment to form around a particular way to relate to wines and spirits. And like, there's data that will now be available that was never available before. You think about how many bottles are left. of a particular vintage.
Mike,
That's powerful.
I hate to interrupt you, but like they said, there's more bottles of Petrus in Las Vegas than were ever produced in the world. It's just
And that's exactly the point.
right.
But here's the thing: when people hear about wine provenance and wine fraud, they're like, "Oh, that's a rich person's problem," which is not an inaccurate statement.
Right. I was gonna say. Exactly, because you think about it, like that, like it's like we at the end of the day, people hate it, but it's a wealth product, and it's just like art, right? So where are you finding high amounts of fraud? Where there's supposed scarcity, where there actually is scarcity, not supposed there is scarcity.
There is scarcity,
and there are people who are willing to pay a lot of money for that.
It's built-in scarcity. That's why wine and spirits as an alternative asset class is actually highly predictable compared to
and performs at a pretty good level.
You know which brands, you know which regions, you know which producers. You generally know the maturity rate at different varietals. So it's relatively predictable. But to me, the investment case is clear, but that's not what's exciting. Like to me, that's a byproduct.
Yeah, so you were talking about this. So let's talk about, and then also, when NFTs came out, and I know you should have brought grape juice just so we had the label, but
don't say the word. I'm glad you said it wrong. That's a mystery release. No, honestly, I'm so pumped for that drop. That drop.
It's gonna
We're
be
gonna
pretty-
drop that.
and I just caught what I said. I love it. You didn't bring the grape juice.
We're dropping
I
that.
said it again.
Yeah. We're dropping.
Perfect.
We're dropping that at
But
at
we will
Bottle
drink
Rock.
some tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're going to be releasing that at Bottle Rock in May.
Okay.
Yeah, you're coming out, buddy.
I was gonna say,
you
I'm like, all right,
you gotta
man.
come.
You gotta hook.
No, we'll do
brother.
it like, totally. We'll do it from scale. We'll do it from
Dude,
Des
we
at
totally.
Chaveri's
I've
place.
done.
Yeah.
We'll definitely do that. So going back to the Westbrook, I got my latest allocation, I guess, and it has a QR code on it, and what I didn't, Don had been talking to me about you,
Yeah.
and he wanted me involved in Rare Liquid, and I was very excited. But I remember just scanning it. I'm like, holy shit, there's my review.
It was on there.
But you also talked about, I remember, because I approached Don, because you did a lot with this, with the DJ. There was like, I saw a lot of the posts were around the EDM, so solving for the provenance, but also what are some of the enhanced features that you're building into what you're doing at Rare
and let me
Liquid?
speak to the QR code. Like to me, QR codes are a temporary solution.
Okay.
It's a good start, right? Anything's better than the status quo, right? Because there's no structure there. There's different, providers and different people that are offering it in different ways. So the QR code is a great start in terms of leading to provenance. So you scan it, it brings up the NFT, and there's all verified data on that blockchain across the board, right? But where it's going, there's RFID chips, and that's, the technology is ahead of the market right now.
All right, so slow down. RFID, what does that stand for?
It's radio. It's radio frequency, near field radio frequency, but they call them RFI.
Okay.
And then it's based on your phone. So your phone interacts with a chip that's in the label. And so what will end up happening, and right now it's expensive to do, but those costs are going to drop significantly, where you can actually trigger and track when the bottle's open, and you can also track temperature. You can track temperature as well as storage condition on that.
Okay, we got to stop right there, because that's also, when you talk about provenance, that's also important. It's huge. How is
Exactly.
it stored?
That's closing the loop.
exactly.
Yes.
Right. So, but artisans, producers will eventually have a choice because it's not free to do that. Right. And it will eventually become more and more affordable to do it. So you need to make a decision. Is your product of quality? Is it worth releasing a limited edition? Eventually it will be ubiquitous. Like the thesis of the company is that tokenization will happen across the industry, and not just this industry.
Everything that's collectible.
And anything where there's a potential for it to appreciate in value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even cars.
Yeah.
And so, but go ahead.
No, it's just when you say cars, I mean, you think about like, there's a whole market for luxury cars getting stolen and shipped to like Africa and shit. Like when your Ferrari gets stolen, you'll be able to know where the fuck that shit is, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's there's so much behind it, but I think that's the biggest, is being able to prove.
Yeah, but also when you think what it does, so the proof is is important, but you think what it does for the producer, it exposes them to a royalty payment for the first time in history. This wasn't possible before the advent of blockchain, like where producers can actually earn a share of the value that they're generating on secondary markets.
And I'm not gonna lie,
really exciting.
That's why I signed up.
Listen.
I was like, whoa, wait a second. Secondary market sales?
You
had me at secondary.
Just watch any movie about the record business. It's so great that the person who actually created the product can still get points down the line.
That's right. You look
the
at
whole idea.
Jerry Seinfeld, and he's continuing to collect residual payments, which he deserves. But all creators deserve that.
Agreed.
And so and then on the collector side, it's about frictionless trading, right? That's a concept that people can't understand, where the ownership of an asset, a great bottle of wine, can actually change with just the click of a button.
What the hell?
Right? If the bottles. There's a bell ringing.
That's
Somebody
so
bring
awesome.
a phone in here?
Anyway, we're live. We're just going to keep rolling with it.
The point is,
Sorry about that, guys.
so
The phone is
yeah.
ringing.
I think they want you, MJ. They're trying to find you.
Hello, I told you never to call me while I'm doing a podcast.
Yeah. But so the physical bottles are in verified, insured storage facilities. There's going to be networks of verified storage facilities that emerge, right? It's really a fragmented world. Third-party wine storage in particular is highly fragmented right now, but it's a really interesting category because there's big demand. A lot of these places are sold out, and despite the fact that there's, downward pressure on the market, that's the people that know what they're doing are like, hey, I'm going to put some money into wine. It's reliable, right? And so the third party, but imagine, some people don't want to invest. They just want to drink, right?
Sure.
So it's instant training.
That would be me.
Yeah.
No, and I get that, but it also leads to frictionless redemption, right? Keep it in storage while it matures under the perfect conditions, and then redeem it when you're ready. The status of the NFT will change, but that's fine. There's different levels of provenance will emerge. That's what we're working on right now, is what is the appropriate level of hierarchy and you think about legacy bottles, right? That's different. With Donnie, we tokenized at the source.
Yeah.
From inception.
Yep.
Right.
So that's going to be the highest level of provenance.
That's the highest level of provenance. Absolutely. Actually, ultimately, and I don't want to go here, but it's possible you can tokenize at the vine level. Yeah.
Oh my God, Mike's Matrix has you now.
Nerd.
There's a really interesting.
But I could see how you could do that.
There's a really interesting guy out of Napa that's doing that.
Yeah.
Named Kia Bonilla. And he's a really fascinating winemaker, and he's hyper focused on the intersection of music and wine.
Yeah.
And I love where he's taking it. It's very, because to me, that's when come on, let's bring it together. It's a new medium,
This is so awesome. So you said something, I don't know, did you have an opportunity to listen to the episode I did with Gary Vee? Because
I did.
He said exactly what you said, the frictionless, your wine is in a vault, it's perfectly stored. If you want to drink it, you can have it.
What's funny? I listened to that podcast, and there was one point in that podcast where he said, you know what? There's people in their garage that are building this right now. And I'm like, Donnie, he's talking to us.
I swear, Gary Vee was just talking about me.
He's like, exactly. It's so dope. He's like, yo, how's he know what I'm doing?
It's true. And the other part is that even on the consumer side, let's say you're not an investor, you're a consumer, you're now talking about wines that are being sold in a manner that is putting more money in the pocket of the producers.
Exactly.
Which also removes the middleman, which also reduces the ultimate cost to the consumer. So you end up in a system where you're actually getting higher quality for less money with more provenance. And to me, that's like a win-win. And the people that are getting the money are the ones that, there's tons of stories out there, friends of mine, people I know in the industry, where the middleman is making more money than they are, and they made the wine.
Exactly.
And that's just crazy.
We're planning our platform fees right now at 2.5%. you know, and then the rest of the royalty structure is the vast majority goes to the producer, and the artists need to be compensated as well. So there's an opportunity with collaborations. That's one of the things that's so cool around Web3 is the way that you can distribute incentives to people.
Right. We can include incentives for Dane Curley.
Yes.
Because part of the reason my wine is successful is his label. So
Exactly.
he can get a cut. It's just it's a great way to
And this
really
is all
get
public
them
data. That's one of the things that's so cool about the blockchain is that we'll expose the
ledger's
royalty
not hidden,
structure.
right.
No, yeah,
Right,
you can.
right.
It's all out in the open for everyone to see.
I gotta flip the script. I'm onto the G2. I don't know if you tried G2. I don't know if you tried. I think
He pulled the eject button, the crypto eject button. He's like,
I'm just like, fuck, man.
It's pretty good.
Total glass stainer.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's got some color.
So I don't know a whole lot about the G2 vineyard. Where's the G2 vineyard located?
So G2 is the closest vineyard to James Berry Vineyard, by distance.
Okay.
It's on Las Talbas Road, right in the heart of Willow Creek District, kind of in between, let's say, Booker and James Berry.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
Okay.
But almost the same exact ridge line as James Berry, very similar soils. Bill Gibbs, the owner, owns Heartstone Vineyard, which was his first vineyard purchase, which is all used by Saxum in his wines. And he wanted to buy another vineyard, and Justin Smith kind of coaxed him into or directed him to G2, where he bought in 14.
Okay.
And that was our first production. But it's a great site. This particular wine is made from an extremely steep hilltop with no soil, tons of rock. We get like 1.5 tons an acre, so
Beautiful.
almost no fruit off of those vines. But yeah, it makes for a really
Don't even have to drop fruit. It's just
no, it just drops itself.
I'm going to tell a quick story about the G2. I have a father-in-law who lives in France, and he came out to California to visit us. And I'm like, we got to go to Paso. He's like, oh, Paso.
those California wines. I know. French people just
And I brought him up here, and it was probably like the 2017 potentially
yeah. Somewhere in
G2, and he drank it, and he's like, "Oh my god!" And he fell in love with Paso. He's always like, "Can I get another bottle of that?" I'm like, "No,
nah, but you got to join
Only if
Rare
you buy
Liquid.
the NFT.
Yeah, exactly. You got to join Rare Liquid.
He's a true skeptic. But he gets what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think I might have one bottle of the 2017 or 2016 G2 left. Holding on to it's hard. We talked about this.
Yeah.
Like I could hold it.
Is this the 100-pointer?
This is the new vintage. This is the 20.
Oh, but the G2 last year was the one. It was the
19 was the
19.
was the
So
100 pointer.
yeah, man. Thanks for pointing out. So like we talked about scores and accolades, and for what I would say to end that conversation, or for now, is that they are very helpful for the average wine consumer. It's only at a certain level of wine where you have your own palate, and you're going to eschew the critics because you feel as if, and a lot of people do know about wine, but I don't have problems with critics. But what's it like? So as a winemaker, as a winemaker, as an athlete, I wanted to be the best. You have to have some measure to some standard. Like I fucking hate fucking T-ball.
I hate losing.
Everyone gets a fucking medal.
Thank you for saying it, MJ. Finally.
I ran track and shit. Like people run a 5K. Everybody who finishes gets a fucking medal. Did you finish in the top 5 or the top 10? Did you run a personal best?
Were you even running when you crossed the finish line?
Exactly. Did you walk across the finish line? So I think there's a certain level of people who like just it's not. We all seek validation. Let's be honest. You like. Do you want to make movies that don't make money or don't win Academy? Either make money or win Academy Awards. You got to do something.
Let me
right?
ask you something though. But you want to apply that thinking to T-ball players?
Listen, there shouldn't be T-ball. There wasn't T-ball. Listen, you had to stand. Listen, I knew I didn't play baseball. I didn't want anybody throwing a fucking ball at me. So I played football, basketball, and ran track. Don't throw something at my head, right? Like you can't. But that was part of the deal.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many major league players play T-ball nowadays. That's very interesting, right? But
I bet you all of them.
probably because they're just their age, right?
Yeah.
But like you got to get
Not for long though. Those were like you're out of T-ball really quickly.
Right.
Pretty quick.
Exactly. There was no fun. Like the kid who just stepped up, whack, just hit it out the park.
Yep.
They're like, okay,
No,
you're going,
you don't get to use that
you don't get to
anymore.
use that anymore. But so there, I do believe there's, very few wine. But look who I hang out with. I would say very few winemakers I know wouldn't be happy to receive a 100-point score. What was that like, man, to get your first 100-point score?
It was pretty awesome. I'm probably a little bit, I don't know, jaded just because of my time at Saxon.
I was gonna say, because you've had your
I
hands on.
see it all the time.
Right, the
you
bar's
know, it's
been
not
set
like
so high
yeah,
for
it's
you.
like,
You're like,
You're
it's
like
only one.
You're like, I made that wine. Like if it was more, but like you didn't necessarily.
yeah. When we saw the submission, it was harvest, and I was at Saxon with Justin, and I pulled it up, and he got 100 points on his G2 from 2019 as well. And I was like, oh my God, I got 100 points. This is the most amazing thing. And then I saw his 300 points. I'm like, shit, now I need to get like 7 more.
Exactly. He's just competitive, right?
Do you think it's
it is
an apt
competitive.
analogy that this is like the guy that's trying to fill Mike Krzyzewski's shoes? Not that you're trying to. You're a totally different artisan. I get that, but in terms of the bar that's been set,
The bar has been set incredibly high, and is well earned and well deserved. And I may never achieve that or surpass that, but I'm sure as hell going to try.
Yeah, I like that. I see where
and
you're
he
going with
would
that
want
now.
anything less from me.
Exactly.
Like
That's beautiful.
you
I
can't
love
be in
that.
love with what you do and want to be if you're really in love with what you do, and you're working with grapefruit, there's no way you can't want to produce a perfect wine or as close. And I don't think any wines are perfect. I think all we do is get as close as we can.
Right.
But if I'm not trying to make every wine for the rest of my life as perfect as I possibly can, then what the fuck am I doing here?
that was actually like in terms of why partner with Donnie as the like founding artisan for this concept and this platform that will change an industry. It's because of his obsession on quality, right? And it takes time, right? And you have to stick with it. And to me, that was like, all right, let's go. I remember the night we were talking about it, and and we're like,
Yeah,
all right.
talk, share your perspective. Like what happened? So like, you're at home, Don. Was it a scheduled call? Because Mike seems very creative and impulsive. Did he just call you? Like,
I don't remember. Do you remember? that?
I was.
There's a certain point at night where I've been drinking, I've smoked a bone, and I don't really want to talk to somebody. But then like the call comes through, and like it's really creative, and it's like, oh, this is fucking cool.
Yeah, I think
I'm sorry.
This one was the middle of the day. This one was the middle of the day.
This is the middle of the day, right?
And I think he called and he said, I have this great idea. I think you're the perfect medium for this new technology. And he said, do you know what a digital twin is? And I was like, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. And I was skeptical. I
think you called it voodoo.
I did call him
You're
voodoo.
like,
I was like, I don't
give
want
me
to
your voodoo
associate my wine with this voodoo.
Something DO economics. Anyone?
Yeah. Bueller. Anyone?
Yeah.
So good.
But then I kind of, I don't know. He was able to explain it in a well enough manner for me to understand that there is practical usage. Well, and then again, he said secondary market sales. I was like, shit, sign me up.
There you go.
That's
right.
all I need to know.
Right.
But as that went forward, I
it's like owning the publishing on your fucking music.
it is, and you should.
Yeah, I think that's it.
You should be able to, and
Yeah.
and actually, blockchain technology is going to help with that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, once I kind of dove in head first, and bought some NFTs.
We should tell him that Bored Ape story.
Which
Yeah,
one?
because I know because you bought.
How we ended up with Bored Apes.
Didn't you buy?
Let me- so
you have a pretty. You bought a NFT.
Yeah,
that's worth
I
a
was
lot of money,
I was fortunate enough to be in company of greatness in the NFT early space.
we have a partner who likes to remain anonymous, who's an elite blockchain developer, and he was very early in on the Bored Ape community because he saw what was forming there, and he was super excited about it. And Donnie and I got very fortunate that he gave us each one
Nice.
at an early stage,
Yeah.
and that was like we watched it become valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're a really interesting platform. They're have a huge runway now. They're very, very creative, and they're kind of holding the standard for the industry right now.
Yeah.
But it's the way that the NFTs that we have were actually inspirational, like bringing those to life, because that's one of the benefits of being a Bored Ape owner is you actually have the commercial rights because everyone is unique, right? You can't use their brand and you can't, but you have commercial rights to your unique set of traits to make t-shirts, to make hats. And we're like, let's make a fucking great wine. Yeah. And that's, essentially what we did. It stayed in barrel for an extra 19 months, and it's only for Rare Liquid members.
All right.
Yeah.
And you got to pause. Let the winemaker talk about what he did. I like Mike is into it. I love that, man. He's like, he's educated himself on the wine side. He's like, stayed in the barrel through the extra. Yeah.
That's actually both sides. We want people from the wine side to come in, and this is a safe place to learn about where the world is going. And then on the
I love that
crypto side, like these
black
are
ass
kids.
Is here.
That's right. But also like the community teaching each other around about wine. We have a master som who's part of our founding team named Des Echeverry, great guy out of Napa. And it's really about the next generation of consumers and collectors, because the appetite is there, but the medium is the message. You know, that's what Tim Leary said. And I firmly believe that. Like they can relate to this. So tell them about how you made the ape juice.
I called it grape juice because all wine
we
is...
were going to make it a mystery, but I guess that cat's out of the bag.
No, he didn't know it.
We'll release this when we want to release this.
That's another thing,
so
too,
let's talk about it.
That's
it's fucking ape juice.
It's fucking ape juice. Yeah. It's ape juice.
It's ape juice.
Actually, Jeb's already scored it.
Okay.
I think it was 96.
He got a 96
points.
And I feel like it was probably dinged because
it was called ape juice.
He's like, what is this voodoo? I can't eat. There's no way he could have objectively reviewed that.
That's what I'm saying.
It's impossible.
And I said this before.
He actually said ape juice, really? Classing it up, aren't you?
Right, exactly. Right? Exactly. Okay, Indiana. The Westberg had got a 96. I was like, this is way better than 96 points. I think
Westberg, the one that you made.
Yeah, but by the way,
96,
the 2020 was a tough year across the board.
Well, we already know, man. We talked about.
We said that earlier. Yeah, that's why I brought these wines to show that
because I was even talking with Jeremy on the way in. Just we were talking about the 2020s, the scores were down. Everything is perception, and my understanding is critics caught one wine had some smoke taint, and they started viewing the whole region through that lens.
Yeah, and it's a reasonable thing to not go crazy, and also coming off 19, which is probably one of our best vintages. For me, the best vintage I've ever seen in Paso Robles. So you expect a little fall off anyway from the scores. You can't have 2019 every year, right. But the ape juice that we're referring to is 2019 vintage, so it is from that year where everything just grew so well. And it was it was something I'd kind of wanted to do. I wanted to play kind of like we do with the Westbergs, the Zinfandel with some Tempranillo and some Petit. Also, I wanted to kind of see what Syrah would do with Zinfandel. So I ended up kind of cherry picking two of my favorite barrels that would have gone into the Claude's Cuvée before it was blended. So they were kind of Syrah-based wines. Mm-hmm. And then two of these Zin Temp wines that would have gone into the Westberg cellars, and I blended them together. So this is kind of really a mishmash, but intentional mishmash of Syrah, Zinfandel, a little bit of Grenache, Tempranillo, a little bit of Petit Syrah. But I really liked the way the two wines.
Did you taste it yet? Have you tasted it yet?
No, I got a bottle. I didn't remember we talked about.
We'll open some tomorrow.
Oh, sorry.
We'll open some tomorrow.
My bad.
But yeah, and one of the effects of that was
y'all know I got it. Y'all know me. You know I had a bottle of that shit. Mike's just me. Everybody fucking knows. Just
zip it. Zip.
Knew it. And just one more thing. Hand fucking delivered. Okay, I digress.
Yeah. We're not proving provenance on that one though. We don't know what you've done.
That was a cool night, by the way. Cool. I had such a good time hanging out with you that night.
And I got a deck I want to share with you because I got some other places if you want to do something in December that could be really cool too.
Yes.
So We'll, after we finish this up,
I discovered I like Riesling and I'm proud.
You should be proud.
You remember what we drank that night? That there was a Riesling flight,
Yeah.
and there was a German that had like honey flavors. I was like,
Yeah.
this is,
Oh, yeah,
and
man.
people are like, do you like sweet Riesling? I don't know if that was
You
sweet.
should, you should stick to talking about tech.
Yeah, but they were dry.
Fuck up, Donald.
Pass me that bottle of wine over there that I can't.
Cuvée?
The cuvee that
So-
I can't remember the name of right now.
Last thing on
'Cause
the
I started
ape, on the
drinking
ape
15%
juice.
alcohol.
One of the unexpected things that happened with that wine is when I did put those wines together, it did increase the tannin level between the Petite and the Syrah. So it was a little bit more tannic than what I would like. So we decided to leave it in barrel for an extra year. So it was a 30-month barrel aged instead of our typical 22.
And from a collector standpoint, it's good to have that extra tannin because people can hold on to it and down the line.
Yeah, I just felt like another year in barrel would benefit the wine.
That's
so.
all the ape juice is real liquids. We have one Salamanzar. I think it's 9 liters and 14 Methuselahs.
God damn.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I know those names, but like I can never.
6 liters and 9 liters.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. This shit right here, go back to this, Don. This is singing.
It's worth drinking.
It's worth drinking. Well, beyond the fact that it'll get you drunk.
Oh,
it's
the
worth
Westberg?
drinking.
Is that, you're on the Westberg.
No,
you're on the Willows
I'm on the
Cuvée now.
I'm back on the Willows, man.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord.
So the Willows is kind of one of my favorite wines every year because Grenache kind of gets overlooked. Everybody's Syrah is just always so big and noticeable and dark. And the Willows every year is one of my favorite wines. And it's finally people are starting to catch on. They used to think that it was because it was less expensive than the G2. It was maybe like my second tier wine.
Right,
And it's only based on what I pay for the grapes. I'm not like picking my favorite wines. I treat it the same way. I take care of it the same way.
A business. I mean, it is the wine business too. People need to understand that, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta.
I have to stay in business, or I can't keep.
Otherwise, we
making
can't
wine.
keep drinking these fucking wines if you don't stay in business.
Exactly. But yeah, so I'm happy that the Willows Cuvée is finally catching on and people are starting to really appreciate it for what it is. Because Grenache is such a special grape and it
I'm just gonna
deserves
wear my
recognition.
I love Grenache hat, but
Would you tell them about Willow's Cuvée and did you already talk about your
Yeah.
daughter?
we talked about
We
Willow,
talked about her
how Willow is
a little bit, yeah.
is a little. I know she's obviously you get to live with 2 amazing women.
I do. Pretty fortunate.
And
They remind me every day.
And the serendipity of Willows Creek Road. I mean, that's just so fucking
Yeah,
cool.
that's true. When I when my wife Claudia was pregnant, we were trying to figure out names. We found out it was going to be a girl.
okay, but you know what shit just hit? So Claude's Cuvée, is that a short for Claudia's Cuvée? Or?
That is named for her father.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Who was
figured,
Claude,
I
yeah.
figured, I was figured she was named after her father. I was like, okay.
Yeah, she was named after her father, and he
Exactly.
was a white marlin captain out of Ocean City, Maryland.
Okay.
So that's the.
Hence
Well, I've
white
seen her.
marlin.
I know her dad was white. I'm just kidding. Oh, you come out there. There's actually a fish.
We all
right
look the
by-
same to you, MJ.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
You see what I did there? Those black wine guys. What is going on? They're always making jokes.
Always making white jokes.
Always making
Yeah, but my wife picked the name Willow while we were still in Florida before Willow was born, and then we
I
moved
love
back.
that.
She realized that I grew up on Willow Creek Road in Willow Creek District. She had no idea about any of those ties.
Oh my God. So we have to, like I make any decisions here, but we have to do some large formats of that for rare liquid just for your daughter, man. Come
We
on.
can't get any more from him. He's like, it's all going to my club.
Well,
give
he's
us
got
a taste.
In the future,
You got a
yeah.
plan for.
Yeah.
And
That would be a great one. to do a
This
large
the
format.
label
and a Magnum, dude. You
Yeah.
talk about
Well,
white
we do
Burgundy.
we actually do have magnums of
Oh,
that
yeah.
wine from 2019 for rare liquid.
Do you have
The
one
only
in the
Magnums-
tasting room right now?
I do.
Because I have the Magnum of the.
I do. I believe I have a Westberg mag, a Plum mag, and I believe
I haven't seen. I have the Westberg and the Plum. I don't have the.
I may
the
not.
Willows
It
yet.
might be at the
But
facility.
the label and the animation that we put together on
The artist did a really good job.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So
nice.
this is all Dane, like the font, the Turtle Rock, the beautiful font.
So the font I actually
or whatever.
had to begin with. So he kind of based some of the styles of the art based on the font. So
For me,
the font's
it
the
look-
only thing that stuck
It's
around.
it's a little like it has a calligraphy almost leans towards like a Japanese, like it has
Without a doubt,
Asian,
like an Asian paintbrush,
paintbrush stroke.
Yeah, absolutely.
Feel, which I think is dope.
Yeah.
But he do like the
Everything, yeah.
Okay.
And the animator is a guy named Lawrence Jackson out of Bristol, England. Shout out to Bristol. What's up, Bristol?
Things you've never heard before on the Black Wine Guy Experience podcast.
Honestly, such
Shout
a
out to
cool
Bristol.
town. Such a cool town.
What's his
I
name
went to
again?
visit it. His name's Lawrence Jackson.
It sounds like a brother. He probably isn't, but like, you know, in my mind, Lawrence Jackson, like, hey man, I'm Lawrence Jackson.
He's not that.
I know.
But
Me and my brother Samuel.
He's an unbelievably talented animator, and he worked with Dane to bring them to life. And to me, like he got it, and like it's just the timing of it, and the animation's beautiful.
Yeah, they did a great job.
They did a really good job. That's this thing that's cool when you go back to not to derail this, but the fact that it's a crazy
too late.
this whole thing's been one derailment.
We went off the rails before you got here.
I mean, we got derailed at 10:30. I'm getting picked up like, hey man, my the battery on my car is fucked up.
No, but it's so cool. You think about it. You have Donnie, the producer.
Yep.
You have Dane, who's the key art creator, and you have Lawrence, who's the animator who brings it to life, and they can all participate. Right? That's the key. In order for things to scale, you need to have aligned incentives, and they're there. Yeah. And just to me, it's making the art piece is really important, you know, because to me, that's what's going to build the market. The commodity, this will all be commoditized. That's fine. Right. But the way to the mass market is through beauty, you know, and simplicity, you know, that's where we're going.
Oh shit. We might just
that was
stop
heavy.
There. We've been talking for over 3 hours. You've only been here for about an hour,
okay.
But like that.
Yeah, I got actual work to do today.
That was actually, that's a great place to end. Hey, first of all, Don, tell people how they can find you, how they can get on the waiting list for Turtle Rock.
Sure. Just turtlerockvineyards.com.
And Mike, tell everybody how they can learn more and be a part about what you and Don are creating with Rare Liquid Society.
Sure. You can check out rareliquid.club, CLUB. Right now, we're releasing what's called the Founders Club. There's 560 total. We're invite only, which means that you have to know somebody that's involved with the project. There's currently, go ahead.
I'm someone you might want to know.
Yeah, but we have 150 owners, and they're members, and they're people that really are supporting the vision and the community, and we're going to 560. I expect these to be sold out by the end of the year. There's 3 levels. We really designed it to appeal to people of all budgets, you know, because we really want it to be widely adopted, and, you know, diversity is really important. You know, we're not trying to recreate the old paradigm. This is a new world, and we really want to push the boundaries. So if you are interested in learning more, reach out to MJ. You know, we'll create an invite code for you, and we're happy to talk to anybody at this stage, especially if you're like from the wine world and you have interesting perspective. We'd love to talk to you. We're going to do 6 drops next year. Donnie's our founding artisan. We're figuring out we have a champagne that I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
We only have 125 bottles of it. But
it's special.
Hey man, I mean,
I'm going to mention it right now just so we have it. It's you know, we might not talk about it yet or release it, but it's called Champagne Paul Lenoir. It's from his very first vintage, 2015. He's out of Champagne. It's imported by Des Echeverry.
It's a grower champagne, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Single vineyard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And we only have 125. And the thing that's so cool is his wife, Sarah, does hand-painted boxes.
Yeah, all wood boxes, hand-painted and designed by her. Which
is like, I love this whole concept, man, that what you're doing here, guys, because, you know, the humility of the winemaker is, I'm a farmer, but what you produce in the bottle is art.
Yeah, and the way that we think about it is it starts with supply. It starts with the producer, because the collectors can see quality.
Exactly.
Right. And so it's like artisans first. That's why we built it around his needs. You know, what makes this work for you? You know, why would you want to participate? It takes time, but we're making beautiful. The team that's forming around this right now is just really inspiring and humbling. Like Kit Kuiper over there, who's, you know, a great winemaker.
Shout out to Kit. Shout out to Lisa.
Yeah.
Welch in the house.
100%.
Everybody.
And Erica.
Shout out to
who's
Frame
here.
Perfect Media.
Yeah, absolutely.
Growing and growing.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Really, I really
seeing
appreciate you showing up.
I'm an old man, so like you like literally I have a daughter older than you, but like to see you like literally your maturation in the 2 years since,
and your professionalism, I have to say, your follow up and just is very clear, and you're a pleasure to work with. So thank you. Yeah.
All right, everybody. So
All
until
right.
the next time, cheers to the
one
Mavericks, the deep thinkers, the philosophers, and all you wine drinkers. It's your boy MJ. Peace.
Peace.